It is Monday, May 24th. Is the Public Safety Committee. Councilman Smith, Chairman, joined by Councilmember Reyes, Mr. Zine, and Mr. Cardenas are en route, but they're not here yet. So we will dispense with the following items with Mr. Reyes' consent. Items 5, 8, and 9 can be consented.
Second. John White, City Clerk. Mr. Smith, for item 5, you have a CA report that was submitted this morning. Do you wish to approve that report?
CA report, correct. And then on item number 7, it only requires a city attorney instruction, so we will instruct the city attorney to draft the documents. And then we hopefully, our colleagues will consent to that when they get here. So if you're here for 5, 8, 9, or 7, you can go. And we'll begin with item number 1.
Item 1, a communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. John Mack to the Board of Police Commissioners for the new term ending June 30th, 2015.
Mr. President, come on up. Glad to have you with us today. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning.
This is kind of perfunctory, as you know, but I just wanted to report that I had a very fine meeting with the Commission President the other day. We are in concurrence on a lot of things the Commission is doing in our efforts to make Chief Beck very successful, and appreciate that. And also in my request that the Commission delve deeper into some issues. Mr. Zine's not here, so you're getting off light today. But on that, also announced to Mr. Reyes at least, and I don't know if John knows this or not yet, but we're working on a date in which we can have a joint council, committee, and commission hearing on the issue of the jails and the closure plan and opening plan. So we're working on that date. Tentatively, what is the date? Do we have? June 14th is tentative. So that is the tentative date. So with that, welcome. Glad to have you here. Mr. Reyes, do you have any questions?
Just one question. I know that you've experienced the highs and lows of this great city, and we're in a particularly tough time right now when it comes to housing issues and the tension out there. From your point of view, what could the council be doing that you think would help facilitate your role as president, given your experience now and what you've been through? What is there that you think we could be doing differently or improve upon, or you'd rather not say and keep things cozy as they are?
Well, thank you, Mr. Reyes. Yeah, maybe I better not say, huh?
Okay.
No, actually, I really feel that, especially considering the big challenges that, the city is facing now, the budgetary challenges. First of all, I'd like to, on behalf of the Commission and the Department, to express our great appreciation to two of you as well as your colleagues for your support of the Los Angeles Police Department, because we realize that in some tough times, and to me that was a very important statement that said to us that the council truly recognizes the public safety is still a #1 priority in the city. And I think it also says that you have confidence in our police department under Chief Beck's leadership, that we're certainly moving in the right direction, and certainly the Commission feels that way. So I would say, generally speaking, we're working together. Perhaps one area that we might pursue, and this is as much on us as it is on the council, from time to time, I think we should hold some of our commission meetings. We've done this periodically in various parts of the city, including, various of your councilmanic districts, so that we can reach out and make it easier for members of the public to come and express themselves, and we can do some listening as well. But that may be something that I would certainly invite as we look to the future. Periodically, would hope that we could have various ones of you to host, to co-convene community meetings.
I think one of the dynamics that I wrestle with in particular is that in my district I have 40% poverty. Our libraries are being looked at for curtailed services. A lot of the major entities that deal with a support network, support system
Yes.
for our youth in particular are being severely challenged and limited. I heard a number, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but there's like 36,000 gang members in the city of LA right now. One of my high schools, we're at 49% dropout. It's been consistent for about maybe 10 years now. And yet we have focus, and I support maintaining our focus on police, because I know that's necessary.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask this question, because the last time I asked it, one of the police officials and one of the union reps responded, well, do you want policemen to be librarians? Do you want policemen to be childcare providers? And that was not my point. My point was, because we do have limited resources and we have prioritized police, we are cutting back on other very important needs in the city. How do we look to the police to help us in engaging our public, knowing that those cuts are there, knowing that those services no longer exist? And again, I'm going to repeat this. I'm not asking police officers to be librarians. I'm not telling them they have to be rec and parks, organizers. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there a different approach to policing, knowing that this net is being severely cut, and there's big holes in it that sustains our social support system for our youth and our families. I mean, I just, because the hardest parts of the city and the toughest ones, the one with the highest poverty, are the ones that are going to feel it the most. Mm-hmm. So I just want to get your perspective on that, because I know you've been through some tough times. We had the riots in the 60s and the 90s. The other day in council, folks blew up because of the posture the council took on housing. It became obvious to me, tenant versus landlords, and that's not the environment we need in the city right now. Right. So there's things are brewing out there, and I just want to be, I need to voice this publicly and get this dialogue going and say, okay, how do we respond as a city? I just want to get your point of view.
Well, first of all, one area that I think that the police department is really doing a very, very fine job. I mean, there are several youth programs, like our cadet program, and some of the other programs in which there's a major focus by the department in working, with young people, particularly in underserved communities, communities with high rates of poverty, and to try to provide these young people with an alternative to a life of gang banging and that kind of thing. So I think that's something that the department is doing, and we work in cooperation with various community groups and really focusing on developing relationships, and something that I'm very proud of, and where I think we've made some real progress over the past 7 years or so, is really to develop much improved relationships between the police department, and particularly, frankly, of communities of color, because I remember some times when the relationships were not nearly as positive as they are now, but it's because of a real proactive approach, and I know that that's certainly the philosophy and the vision that Chief Beck has, and certainly strongly supported by the Police Commission. Another area that, LAPD doesn't have a direct responsibility for, but I think even though we're in these tough fiscal times, we just need to figure out a way to create more job opportunities too. I think that's a real answer to many of the problems, and perhaps city government can't do it alone, but maybe this is an area where there should be an increased focus on the part of the city to work in partnership with the private sector to really look at some ways of creating job opportunities and training opportunities, so that we can offer hope and opportunity to young people. Of course, you cited the example of the regrettable incident this past Friday around the whole housing situation. I mean, we are in a time when, frankly, we need to have voices of reason all over the place, because many people are feeling desperate, and of course, some people don't handle adversity very well. So, we need to have, whether it's leadership from the police department, police commission, city council, I think we all have a role to play in trying to come up with some good answers to those difficult challenges. And I know that there's a strong commitment on the part of the police commission and the department to do all that we can within our power to make a difference.
Well, I have a lot of confidence in Chief Beck. We've had conversations. We went through MacArthur Park experience together.
Yes.
And I know there's a perspective there that speaks to flexibility and tolerance,
Yes.
but also understanding the importance of communication.
Yeah.
And I think he has taken necessary steps to create that model for community-based policing, and that's, I think, we're going to need. So, but thank you for that insight. Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. And for the record, we've been joined by Councilman Zine. Mr. Zine, Commissioner President.
Well, I know the commissioner very well.
Good morning.
In his career with the Urban League prior to the appointment to the Police Commission, you've done a great job. I see you at many events. You're very supportive of the activities of the officers of the department. So I approve the move for the approval.
I just wonder if you were president of the Urban League, too.
I wasn't.
That one, you missed that one.
I didn't get invited to that yet. Thank you, John.
Thank you. And just for your knowledge, Mr. Zion, we had a good discussion the other day about what happened with the photo red light in the commission with you and I 2 years ago, and our request that the commission probe a little more and ask more questions. So the commission was more than anxious to do that. With that, do we have a motion to approve? Moved, seconded. Mr. Commissioner, congratulations. We appreciate very much your service to this city, long years of service, as well as on the police commission. We will send it to committee, to council on what day?
Wednesday this week.
Wednesday. We'll see you on Wednesday, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Zine, we're waiting for your approval. We consented 5, 8, and 9,
Concur?
and we gave instruction to the city attorney on number 7 to bring back the appropriate documents.
Okay.
All right, those now go forward. And item number 2.
Item 2, communication from the mayor and CEO report relative to various revisions to the fiscal years 2006, 2007, and 2008 Urban Area Security Initiative Grant Awards.
A lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers.
A lot of numbers.
Good morning, Melissa Fleming with the CAO. The item before you is a package of recommendations associated with the continued implementation of the 2006, 2007, and 2008 Urban Area Security Initiative, or UASI, grant awards. The Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Public Safety is requesting authority to make various revisions, including extensions of the performance periods and various modifications to the projects and grant budgets. Authority is also requested to accept the supplemental 2007 UASI award in the amount of $750,000. And lastly, authority is requested to reimburse or appropriate a total of about $5.4 million to various city departments to continue implementation of these grants. And I'm joined here with members of the Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Public Safety to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Anything from the mayor's office?
Excuse me, sir?
Anything from the mayor's office? You just said this.
Nothing additional, just for your
Okay.
questions.
Just a couple things. As we look, some of these are extensions. This is normal business for us. What is the status of the $7.5 million for the regional video command center? You're going to be funding some of that now, but what is the status of that project? You're moving some of that money forward.
Yes. Let's see.
That was on page 3, item 2, Regional Video Command Center.
Good morning. I'm Sandy Russell. I'm the project manager for the Los Angeles Police Department on the Regional Video Command Center project. Our anticipated completion is within the next 90 days.
Oh, very good, okay. And then we're moving moving some training money from the CBRNE training program for enhanced incident management, unified command. And then there's another $7.1 million in JRICS that's going to be moved into contingency projects. What happens if we don't, will that money come back to us? If we're moving that money out of these years, can we expect that it will be coming back to us in the future year?
Do you want to take this, Stephen?
I can take the Seaburn question first, if you'd like that one, sir.
Okay.
What we're doing is, you're talking about the Seaburn training props and moving it into unified command training?
Yeah.
Yes, what we did is we had some training props scheduled for our Station 88 project. Due to the non-allowability of one of those props, we had to reprogram that money. So based on the fire chief's recommendation, we're programming it to unified command training for the regional partners, Los Angeles Fire Department, Police Department, and EMD.
Okay.
Approximately $500,000 total for that. And then the rest of it goes into night vision goggles for our helicopters.
The PD also, or just fire?
Those are just fire.
Just fire. Okay.
And then I think the second part of your question was with respect to the $7 million on LA-RICS, is that right?
The 2007 URC funds,
Right.
LA-RICS.
That money is being transferred to the multiple other projects listed in the CAO's transmission. That money will be redistributed to those other projects. The money will not be replenished into LA-RICS until the next UASI cycle, UASI 10, which will be presented to council shortly, will have additional allocations for LA-RICS.
All right, so that's coming back in the next budget cycle?
Well, one could look at it that way, but this $7 million is being taken from LA-RICS because the money could not be spent in the time frame required by the grantor.
When I'm looking at the time frame, it says you're issuing an RFP, and then August 4th, 2010, and then there's an extension to the spring of 2011, but the performance period ends in April of 2011, so we're kind of missing some dates here.
For the 07 money,
Yeah.
it had to be spent by that time, and LA-RICS would not be able to spend it by
Right.
next spring.
But we're going to be getting that back then in the next
The
cycle.
next UASI
Okay.
cycle will have additional monies for LA-RICS, correct?
And then there's one thing I noticed was on the CODIS, on the 1400 and the DNA, was that in, and I didn't have a chance to look at this, was that in this year's budget plan for PD? To send out the 1400 DNA cases?
No, this is separate to their budget. This is just the UASI money, the grant money for CODIS, so it's not included in the LAPD budget. So this is new to assist with the backlog.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is there wasn't that large of a backlog. I think we funded in this cycle then completing it, the backlog, other than the recurring backlog that comes from the FBI, that additional backlog.
The only way to get through, well, by our calculations, the way to get through the complete backlog includes this grant.
Okay, so we funded in this year's budget the completion of the DNA packages outsourcing. Now we've got that new growing backlog as created by the FBI rules. So this will address then that secondary backlog on the hits.
It's the other way around.
Okay, the other way around. All right. Either way, it works out that we're going to have funding on both sides of that problem to reduce the number down by
Right.
the end of the year, hopefully almost to zero.
Correct. And
Almost.
the grant, one requirement for the grant is it can't be to pay employees, so that's why this grant has to be
Yeah.
used for the vendors.
Okay. And then one last thing, and I'll ask you if you could look at this opportunity. There was a request that I had, and I never transferred to you, I don't know if he's spoken to you, but from EMD regarding satellite radios, telephones, sat phones, because their projection is that in a severe earthquake, the one that's being predicted by the USGS, that these telephone systems, including landlines and handhelds, will be down. And there is no communication system that exists then. And they think it's only about $35,000 to equip EMD with satellite phones. We might also look to LAPD and FD and see what their needs may be too, as far as certain command functions having satellite phones. but that'd be a very worthy investment, I think, as far as we prepare, because you could have a terrorist attack that takes out our cell system, and our landlines will be bogged down, as we know from the earthquake. So I think if we can buy those that cheap, that we ought to look at that. So if you take a look at that, I'd appreciate that.
We'll take a look at that.
And I think that ends my questions. Mr. Reyes?
No.
Mr. Zine?
On the sat phones, do we have any of those
We
in
have-
our stock now?
We have none.
We have none?
No, not a one.
I know Burbank has some. I've seen them in use.
We do have some.
We do. Fire,
Have some?
police, emergency operations?
Our fire command structure, we do have a limited number.
Okay, what about
I
PD?
can't speak for police.
I know Burbank has them, and they've used them on occasion just to make sure that they have that capacity. And Mr. Smith is accurate. When the system goes down, we virtually have no communication. Captain, do you know if we have any in the PD?
We have a few, but not,
Okay.
certainly not to the extent that
I'm sure we don't have a lot, but we have some to limited communication.
You should have one at least in each bureau, for the bureau commander, I would think, and each division of the fire department should have one. And
Not to
then-
that extent, where we have one in each of the bureaus.
Yeah, well, we should take a look at that, and I'll ask you to take a look at that and see if we can stick that in the UASI. It's an appropriate place for it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then the other issue I have with the dollars, so we're talking about different nuances grants here, there, and everywhere. How does that affect our budget going into next fiscal year with the different entities?
Perhaps the CAO wants to address that more directly, but it's separate from the budget. These are items on top of what's been funded by the city in the budget.
So, well, we have the city budget,
I just
Which
want to
is-
make sure the CAO agrees with that.
Yeah.
So-
which is
Might have,
struggling. We have the UASI grants that go into those specific departments, and they will fund these specific programs. But if we don't have funds for the other programs, how do these programs match with those other programs? I noticed $10,000 for police overtime, where we don't have cash overtime for law enforcement. How does that all mesh together?
Specific to the police overtime, some of the police overtime is associated, I know PD stopped doing cash overtime midway through the fiscal year, and a lot of these grant programs, the expenditures began at the beginning of the fiscal year, and we're just now reimbursing those expenditures, so that's some of those. You are correct that the UASI grants are off budget, and so any expenditures associated with them are sort of looked at separately from the regular city budget. Where possible, a lot of the departments are utilizing existing staff members for these projects. So if they have an individual and they're having difficulty in their city budget, they are reassigning them to grant-funded projects to try and help out the city's overall picture. But we do have to be careful with that in the issue of supplanting, because obviously grant funds, we need to make sure that we're not supplanting city general funds that were previously provided for that same purpose.
Okay, but there is a coordinated effort between,
There is a coordinated effort, and as we go through, obviously the CAO is very concerned about that, and as we go through this process and work with the departments to put together these reports, we do discuss with them that situation and see where it's possible to use the grant funding in a way that helps our overall budget picture.
okay, great, thank you.
okay. Mr. Reyes?
On page 3, when you cover the regional planning, training, and exercise alliance, there's an instance in 06 where the department returned money, elected no longer to participate in that program. Does that happen often when we have grant monies and the city doesn't take them and returns it? How often does that occur, and what are the reasons for that?
It does happen sometimes where money's freed up, and there's a process of reallocating those funds, working with our working group and approval authority, seeing what best fits the needs of the city and county.
So whatever goes back in the system, but another entity absorbs it? If, let's say, right, in this case, it was, I guess, Recreation and Parks, returned, it was not much, 73,000. So it went back into another city within the program area?
Well, it's kind of up for modification, and there's a process where everybody kind of has a chance to submit projects for those available funds, and the best projects in the mind of the working group and approval authority are funded with funds that are freed up. Either they can't spend within the performance period, or they just can't spend. It's not a feasible project.
So, generally speaking, just taking a step back, these funds that come in, to what degree does the chief have influence in how it works and how it leverages what he has from the general fund? Where is that dialogue, and who is in that dialogue?
Well, perhaps to give an overview, there's a working group that's put together throughout the region from county officials, city of Long Beach officials, other police chiefs come together, and it's the public safety groups that come together, the departments, the police, fire, emergency management, in the case of the county, the health department, come together and strategize for the region. Ultimately, Police Chief Beck, Fire Chief Peaks, Emergency Manager GM Featherstone are on what's called the Approval Authority and have votes along with the county and city of Long Beach in ultimately determining how they vote on the distribution of funds for the UASI.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Mr. Zine?
I have nothing further.
Okay. If there's no further comments, we'll move that forward with approval of the CAO's recommendations. That'll be the case. Thank you very much. My apologies, Mr. McQuiston, when we went through the number 7, we didn't call your card, so Mr. Quiston, if you'd like to come forward. On item number 7, that was the fire department fees. Guess we have to open number 7 up again?
Sure.
All right. Number 7's open again.
Jim McQuiston. Unfortunately, my fax didn't get distributed, but it's going to be in the record. The problem that I saw with this ambulance service, especially when I found out how much it was, there is a problem because the property taxes used to pay for this. And there is a section in Article 13D that says that if you increase what the property taxes paid for, then you have to have a vote of the people. And there was no mention in this whether the city attorney is going to go for a proposition vote. Of course, you can do that, but it delays the imposition of the fees. And we need something to fill the budget in the meantime. And there is about $100 million available in the budget if we start charging for something else, and we could use those fees that we're getting back, in other words, it's general funds, to actually finance this. And I did want to point this out to the Public Safety Committee because it serves two purposes. If we looked at the fire department very closely and decided that they should have a little more money, we could carve out some of that $100 million for the fire department so we could put them back on the regular service, but we could also eliminate some of these fees and save ourselves a lawsuit. I think probably the Jarvis group would probably object to this fees because specifically the Constitution says that you're not supposed to charge for this, and that would be an extra expense that we would probably have to put out in a lawsuit, where we could avoid the whole thing by just doing it in a different way. And so I wanted to point that out.
All right, thank you. And just for your edification, during the budget process, we this money was accounted in the budget, so this is not new money to the budget. It won't free up anything. It's already counted. But the fire department believes that they will collect a lot more because of the new collection system. So there's a footnote in the budget that says any additional revenue that comes in from collection of this amount above and beyond what was planned will go back to the fire department to reduce.
Yes, I understand that, but unfortunately it didn't get in the record. But if you look at Article 13D of the Constitution, it says that you're not supposed to charge for fire department services or ambulance services. And so that more or less puts a crimp in what we can do.
I think the city attorney would argue that point, that it's not in there because we've been doing this for about 30-something years. So thank you very much. Then item 7 will again go forward with instructing the city attorney to bring back the appropriate documents. Item number 3.
Item 3, Board of Police Commissioners Report and CO Report relative to a 2008 Competitive Training Program Grant Award in the amount of $2,489,211 for the Police Department's National Consortium for Advanced Policing.
Good morning, Jason Clean, Office of the CAO. The LAPD is requesting authority to accept a grant award of $2,489,211 from the United States Department of Homeland Security Federal Emergency Management Agency for the 2008 Competitive Training Grant Program for the period of June 1st, 2010 through November 30th, 2012. The grant provides funding to create a national consortium for advanced policing, which will serve as a training resource for state and local agencies. And the department is here to answer any program-specific questions.
Chief?
Yes, good morning. Mike Downing from Counterterrorism Criminal Intelligence Bureau. This is really the third phase of a plan that we had where the first plan was $100,000 was raised with private money, where we piloted this program, a National Counterterrorism Academy in Los Angeles with approximately 100 students. The second phase was a $500,000 grant that the state awarded to us, to the city, to export this idea in Los Angeles and San Francisco. We just completed that a few weeks ago with approximately 100 students in Los Angeles and 100 students in the San Francisco area. And then this is the kind of a logical progression of that. This is now looking at 5 cities, Los Angeles, Seattle, Chicago, New Jersey, and Miami, to develop this training around, and we take it a little bit further in this realm where we talk about counterterrorism, narcotics trafficking, gangs, organized crime, and human smuggling, the convergence of this, developing ideas about understanding the nature of the threat, how to counter these threats, and long-term mitigation factors. In this case, with this grant, we're looking at training over 3,000 people across the United States, and I think it speaks well of the city of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Police Department in terms of leading this effort to raise the stature of American policing relative to the evolving threats that we're seeing in our country.
So when you say students, you're talking about police officers, police executives?
It's really focusing on mid-management to develop capability and capacity in their police departments.
Very good. Mr. Reyes?
When you made reference to gangs, and how is that being observed? When we talk about studying this, what are we studying? Are there variables there that you can speak to without violating any security or any insight that might be detrimental to the city or the process?
Well, this National Consortium of Advanced Policing is not so much studying the gang phenomena, but understanding how to mitigate the enterprise and the network so that we don't just focus on individuals, but that we look at strategies that we evolve to that look at the whole criminal enterprise and the phenomena that we're seeing now of convergence with organized crime networks, gang networks, narcotic networks into the realm of terrorism.
So the drug trade would be one?
Absolutely. I mean, of the 43 officially designated terrorism organizations in the world, 17 of them touch narcotic enterprises.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Zine?
Chief, the NCAP, what is that?
The National Consortium of Advanced Policing is an established 501c3 that we operated with the second phase of this program. It is a sole source that's been approved by the state and the city attorney. It's a group of people that have experience in this area. It actually first started with the Manhattan Institute, which was an institute that helped build the capacity in Los Angeles for our counterterrorism capability. That institute collapsed and only stuck with public policy, but it had a Center for Policing Terrorism that we took and merged into the National Consortium of Advanced Policing, so that the people that were involved in that are now the people on the National Consortium of Advanced Policing. There's bylaws, there's a board of directors. The board of directors are about 4 people in the United States that are experts in this area.
Who are the members of the board of directors?
Frank Salufo is a professor at the George Washington Institute, at the George Washington University. He is the Homeland Security president. R.P. Eddy, who you may have known when Chief Bill Bratton was here, He helped develop our counterterrorism capability and was a White House advisor. An attorney by the name of Greg Gittler, who's here in Los Angeles, is part of that as well, and Rich Esposito, who is an ABC News correspondent, who's written books on weapons of mass destruction and bomb squad. Those are our primary board of directors.
And it mentions $150,000 will be used for auditing purposes and $2,339,000 utilized for contractual services. And I have concern about sole source contracts. When we see $2 million going out on contractual services, who are those folks going to get those contractual services for $2 million?
Just as we did this last rendition of the Consortium or the CT Academy, these are experts that we bring in from all around the world that are subject matter experts in our field. We've had 2 people from the United Kingdom come and serve as instructors. We've had Lawrence Wright, who wrote The Looming Tower and is the foremost expert on Al-Qaeda, come and instruct the class. We've had the very best instructors from around the world as part of the instructor cadre. The $150,000 is actually the M&A fee that we carved out of this, so that there is no cost associated with this program to the city, and in fact we are essentially employing a management aide for a 30-month period to administer and audit this grant.
And then that will then go back to the provider of the grant. The audit will then go to make sure that everything was done as
That's
contracted?
Correct. Yes.
And so how many sole source contract with this organization? So they will select the individuals that will be conducting the training for these folks from these other departments around the country.
Yeah, that's part of it. The other part is we're actually building a center of excellence with online training, digital libraries, resource material. I mean, the grand vision for this idea is to build a network of law enforcement, American policing law enforcement professionals that will hopefully help raise the stature so that we could defend our country against terrorism. And we understand that the federal government has a responsibility to do this, but there are still wide gaps in actually meeting it. And so I think this city and the Los Angeles Police Department is taking a lead in doing that. And as you know, this several years ago, Bill Bratton had this idea to do this, and we've just kind of continued the momentum and built this. And as a result, we won the grant. We won the $2.5 million grant. And so now we're trying to bring it to fruition. If it does work, the idea would be to add to it and continue to build until we get to the 56 major cities of the United States.
And how many folks from LAPD will be trained in this?
How
many will be trained?
Will be trained. Well, we've already had probably in excess of 50 that have gone through the first class and the second class.
And what's their ranks?
We look at mid-management, so lieutenant, D3, D2, and in a few cases, depending on their interest level and their career track, we've taken some sergeants and P3s.
Okay. So that experience will then help them in keeping us safe, and then blossom to other cities that may not have the resources we have.
Not only blossom to other cities, but create a network so that we have a good communication network between us. Because no longer is this threat local. In fact, it's not even regional or national. It's become international. And so I think it helps us understand the nature of that threat and develop strategies to counter it.
How does this link in with that center they're building in the new police administration building? That new...
The SCIF?
The SCIF.
Well, I mean, that's the...
You're not entitled to know that.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just saying. That secret... facility. I go back to the OPD.
Well, I think it leaks in is that we are really establishing a leadership position with a municipality to have a facility like this. And as leaders, we can help impart some of the experience and knowledge we had in building that capability so that other municipalities might be able to build a similar capability.
Will this tie into that, though?
Not really. I mean, this is our intelligence operation. This is a city-centric joint terrorism task force operation that will focus on criminal enterprises within the United States, specifically Los Angeles, that has a nexus to terrorism.
That's what the SCIF's for, but this will be broader in scope.
This is much broader. This is this is not really. I wouldn't even consider this training. I would consider it more education. So that we have the opportunity to elevate the stature of American policing relative to this rapidly evolving threat.
Will they be using the police academy and the police academy resources?
Well, in Los Angeles, they'll be using the ARTC, where we have a really great facility there, and in the other cities, they will be using equivalent police facilities.
And then are we going to have LAPD personnel assigned to this? They're going to be taken out of their current responsibilities?
No, however, there are some LAPD instructors that participate in the curriculum, in delivering the curriculum to this.
But that's full-time or part-time?
No, it's very part-time.
Okay. Because I know the chief cut back on those high-risk locations that we had activities going on at one time because of the reduction of overtime for people to do other activities.
You're talking about the Protective Security Task Force? Yeah. That's basically been eliminated or merged with something else? We stood it down March 1st.
Okay. And then the other question, Mr. Bratton, former chief, has a private security operation. Is that part of this?
There's no nexus to that, none. And he's not on any board, or he's not involved in this in any way.
Okay, because I know he was a strong leader in international terrorism focus, or counterterrorism focus.
And now Los Angeles is.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, don't leave, because the next one's yours also, isn't it?
Excuse me?
The next one's yours also, isn't it, 4?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go ahead and approve that.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Item number 4.
Thank you.
Item 4, Board of Police Commissioners report relative to a 2009-2010 Project Safe Neighborhood Program Grant Award.
This is only $60,000.
Yes.
Captain.
That's all I could get. Good morning, Kevin McCarthy. The Los Angeles Police Department is asking the city to accept a grant of $60,000. It's a two-part grant. Part will be applied to the advancement project to train Los Angeles police officers to deal with the gang interventionists, and the part 2 is for RACER to use a social network software at RACER to help do investigations.
The only question I had for you is, there's a $30,000 consultant fee in here? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's for the, you want to address that? You know that?
Not much. Just a $30 consulting fee. Curtis Kobayashi, grant section at PD. The $30,000 is just for consulting fees with the training organization that they've contacted to do the training.
It's to provide training. They're providing 10 8-hour classes. They're providing a class coordinator and providing some expertise for the class.
So these are proctors for the class then? Or are they actually going to teach the class?
No, they do some training. We're going to have, it's going to be both. It's going to be the sheriffs. It's integrated with the sheriff's department. The sheriffs will provide some training, LAPD will provide some training, and the advancement project will provide some expertise.
The question I was going to ask is, why don't we have enough people to do this, our expertise ourselves?
Well, it's really
You're already part of the program. This is for the parts that you can't do.
Yes. We feel it's an important component to the program.
Okay.
Great idea. No problem. No problem.
Great. All right, that will go forward with approval of the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 6.
Item 6, Department of General Services report relative to the security of photocopiers and fax hard drives used by the city.
Good morning, Ken Desowitz, representing General Services. I'm here to provide you with an update of our May 5th report that we submitted in this matter. We've been negotiating with RICO, the city's contractor for leasing copiers, to identify, of the 17 machines returned, what the disposition has been with those machines. 16 of them were analog machines that did not have the hard drives referenced in the report. One of them did, and that RICO confirms that machine, the hard drive, has been erased. which leads me into the next item, which is the certificate of destruction. This is a common mechanism to identify, in fact, that the hard drive has been erased. This feature was not included in our current contract. However, it will be mandated in our next contract. We've been negotiating with RICO to provide us with certificates of destruction or erasure, and we haven't come to a conclusion on that, but we hope to. And lastly, the data overwrite software. This is the software feature that provides the greatest amount of security in terms of overwriting information to the hard drives of copiers. We've negotiated with RICO to provide this feature at a cost of approximately $250 to $300 per machine. The city has roughly 1,600 machines in its fleet of copiers, and the police department has actually purchased this feature on over 30 of their machines.
Out of how many? 30 out of how many? They got to have a lot.
They have the most significant number, but I don't recall, but I can update you on that as well. But I believe that these are the machines that they believed were most critical to their operations in terms of the level of security that they wanted, which kind of leads me to the dilemma. Do we mandate as a city that all the machines have this feature, or do we rely on the company to provide a certificate of destruction or erasure? And I think a recommendation from council would be needed for us to mandate it and require all 1,600 machines have that feature.
Well, which feature would you recommend? I mean, is it cheaper to just get the programming ourselves and do that ourselves before we release?
It's not something that can be provided by city forces. We would have to purchase it through RICO, and the overall exposure we're talking about is about $65,000 spread over the remaining 2.5 years of the contract. So in terms of cost, it's fairly minimal, and it provides the greatest amount of security in terms of protecting the city's information.
Have you looked at different risk factors of departments? Like the police department, I would assume, would have a very high factor of information we don't want out. But some other, what prompted this was a CBS report that was done, where they just went to an aftermarket used copier place, and one of the machines belonged to the Buffalo Police Department, their drug unit, and had numerous information about drug dealer activity, 60,000 or something documents that was stored in it. And the second one belonged to the state of New York Human Services or something that had 200,000 Social Security numbers in it.
Right.
So there's got to be some departments that would have high risk. I doubt mine office has a high risk. I don't know what Zine does with his machine, but but there's got to be some machines we don't care about, others that really have information. I would assume a housing department, which would have Social Security numbers.
I would recommend that
fire ambulance stuff.
GSD can put forth a citywide memo promoting this data overwrite feature and the costs associated to all the department heads, and let the department heads decide on which of their machines they want to add that feature to.
That would probably be a good recommendation. And in the scheme of things, if you said it's 60,000 over a couple of years, that's nothing in the scheme of things compared to the information that could get out, which would be really critical information.
Mr. Chairman, as a committee, could we identify in a very general way basic criteria that should be sensitive? Because maybe some department heads might not think the information is sensitive, and maybe it is. I mean, I'm wondering if we should, or maybe get a recommendation from them as to what threshold should a department look at and say, well, it doesn't meet that threshold, we don't have to worry about it, or we have to be not as secure given the different stages of information. Could you provide that, sir, in terms of what threshold information?
We'll work with the city attorney's office to try and identify the types of information that may be considered more sensitive than others, and try and come up with categories.
Anything that would have a name and any kind of number that you could use for identity theft, be it Social Security numbers, driver's license, WIC numbers, I don't know. Whatever would have a something associated with it, with a name that you can use in ID theft, would be critical. I think in the police department, everything they have in their department probably would be something that we don't want out. I think it'd be important if you could come back with that list and we could reschedule this in the next couple of weeks again, because I think time is a critical element here. If that, have we got any machines going out of service in the next month or two? Do we know?
The 17 machines that have been returned back to RICO were due to termination for non-appropriations. Those departments no longer needed those machines and didn't have the funding to support the need. The biggest push will come in 2.5 years when the contract expires. That's when the majority of the machines will be returned. So we do have some time to deal with.
Why don't we just say this? Why don't we instruct you not to release any machines from the city service back to RICO or anybody until we get a policy in place. So if there's anything going off service in the next month or two, we haven't got the policy, we will hold it and not release it back to the lessor.
Absolutely.
Okay? And then that'll give you 2 months' time to come back with a policy for us that we can approve and understand then what the budget implications would be. But is that fine?
That'll work.
Well, with this budget, there were some departments that were sunset. What happens with that equipment? Is that what you're talking, the 17 going back?
Yes.
Department of Neighborhood Empowerment.
Yes.
And Commission on Status of Women. Some of these other departments.
Some of those machines, I believe, are reassigned within the city family before they're returned. If we can't find a home, and the publishing services operation within GSD is the organization which coordinates this and tries to place machines elsewhere in the city family. But if a place can't be found, a match for that type of machine that's needed, then it would get returned. And we've got over approximately 1,600 machines, and only 17 have been returned 2.5 years into the contract. Okay. It's minimal at this point.
Okay, so the instruction is you won't release any machines unless you get the hard drive erased during that time frame until you come back with a policy for us, and we'll schedule that as soon as you can get back to us.
Yes.
That's the order of the committee. So be it. Thank you very much. And I believe that brings us to the end of today's agenda, Mr. White.
Yes, sir.
Take us home. All right. That concludes the agenda. If there anyone wants to speak on a non-agenda item, now's the time to speak under public comment. Seeing none, meeting is adjourned.
All right. One more Monday.